This is the solution for Python coding lab number 7, problem number 2, which is point.py, in which we have to complete the definition of a class. So basically this is a class, and basically we need to complete all the functions here and make sure that all the test cases run. At this point of time, if I run this, let me run this. You'll notice that my code is going to fail because all the functions are empty and all the arguments are not present inside the function. For example, right now we're getting a type error, which is that init takes 0 positional arguments, but we're given 3. So let's look at our code. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm just quickly going to comment everything out. Just going to keep the first definition alive and just comment out everything else. So what I'm going to do is basically just so we do that, and let me just actually just uncomment this guy and save it. Now let's go to the definition. First is the init function. So I need to complete the init function to begin with. Init has the initialization code. So first thing is here, we need to fix the arguments. So the first argument is always self. Now next argument can be 2 points, 2 coordinates, x and y, and then we can basically assign those coordinates to our class instance variable. So I'm going to write, suppose I'm going to create 2 variables, self.x, which is equals to x, and self.y, which is equals to y. So those are the 2 variables that I'm going to keep. So if I just do that much, that now if I look at my code on line 36 here, so p1 equals to 0.12. So this will not fail now, basically because I have created an initialization code which accepts 2 arguments and it will initialize the point. So let's run this code. So at least there's no error. I'm not printing anything at the moment, which is there's nothing being printed to console. However, if I go back to my line here and I uncomment this, then there's going to be a problem because the second point is being initialized with no arguments. So now if I run this, it's going to be a problem because init is expecting now 3 arguments in total when 2 positional arguments are missing. So how can we fix that is basically we can just once again try to make the arguments default. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to make this argument default by saying this. So now if no argument is passed, then x and y gets default initialized to 0, 0. So let me save this. Let's go here and run the code. So no problem now. So second line is fine at the moment. Now let's go to the bottom again and let's look at our move x and move y. So there are 2 functions here. Both of them are moving the x coordinate and y coordinate. Let's uncomment these and go back. So move x right now is the definition is empty, and what we need to do is we need to take an argument and move x coordinate by that argument value. So suppose the argument here is some distance. Okay, some distance. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say self.x add this distance to our x coordinate. Similarly, y, actually, sorry, there's a mistake here. Let me add self. And then similarly for y, self and then distance. Then basically self.y plus equals to distance. Now let's save this code and run it again. Once again, we have not printed anything so far, so it's okay. Let's look at what is the next code here. So print P1 and print P2. So we need to complete the definition of P1 and P2. At this point of time, if we just run this, okay, so first of all, we need to fix the str function. Yes. So we need to add a self here. So now if I run this code first, you will notice that our str function is returning a non-string type, which is giving this problem. So $_str is what Python uses to print an object, and we need to clearly define this function to return a string object. It cannot return a none. So let's go back here and let's define something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to print things in the form of x, y, like this. So I want to return something like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to construct a string which is going to be of this format, and my coordinates are this variable and this variable, and I'm just going to pass in the values self.x, self.y. So this string will then, this bracket will take the value of x and this bracket will take the value of y, and it will print it, and this will return a string. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to return that answer. So now this is a string and it should work. So let's go again, run this code. Now you will see that our coordinates are being printed. So hence we have completed now quite a bit of definitions here. Final thing that we need to do is distance. So we also need to print the distance here. Now distance of a point from origin, it's basically some coordinate geometry there. Suppose you have a coordinate system, and let's say this is 0, 0. There is some point x, y. Then this distance here is basically x square plus y square under root so we need to compute that to return the distance. So how do we do that? Well, there are a couple of approaches that we can use. So one thing is basically, let me fire up Python shell. So one thing that we can do is, suppose we can, this is the power in Python. You can also use 2 to the power 0.5. That will give you under root. 0.5 is half, that can give you the under root. Or you can use the sqrt function from math. So you can import math and use math.sqrt of, let's say, 2. That gives you the answer as well. So what I'm going to do here is, to calculate the distance, I'm going to go back to the distance, and I'm going to compute the distance now. So suppose I'm going to use the math module. So what I'm going to do is jump here and import math. So come to distance again. And let's calculate the distance. So what I'm going to use is math. So first of all, what is the distance? So in this case, the point has 2 coordinates, self.x and self.y. And we need to compute this. So this is self.x square, self.y square, and you have to add them. So let's do that. So self.x square plus self.y square. We don't ideally need to put any parentheses because the square is going to take precedence over the plus. But if that you find clarity by doing that, you can do that. And then I'm going to put an square root. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say math.sqrt of this. And then finally, I'm going to return that answer. So return math.sqrt of math.square root of self.x square and self.y square. So let's do that. Let's run this code. There's a problem. And okay, I've not fixed the arguments yet. So arguments also need to be fixed. So let's add the self here. Now let's run this code. And you will notice that the distance is being calculated. And you can check, verify by going to some kind of a scientific calculator and trying this out yourself. So you can put underscore, what was our function here? So 4.2 was the first one. So you can put so under root of 4 and then square plus under root of 2 and square. So 4.4721, 4.4721. So that's correctly being calculated. So that's the solution for problem number 2. We have completed all the function definitions of this class point. All right, if you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments. Thank you.